Hey everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I thought I would share with you guys the process of coloring up and doing a quick birthday card for my nephew who is turning 13. So he's no longer a little kid, he's really a tween now, and I thought I would try and make him kind of a cooler, less kiddie kind of card. So I am coloring up James from the Creeper Crew from the Greeting Farm. And I'm just starting with the skin tones. I start with an E00, and then I'm doing some shading with an E21. I've drawn in a little bit of a nose, and for boys I like to use an R30 rather than a 20. It's a little less pink, and it's a more natural, I think, male kind of blush. I'm also kind of trying to blend out some more darker colors and bridging that E00 and E21 with an E01. And I'm trying to put in the shadows on the lower parts on either side of the nose, on the either sides of the, above the eye area before you get to the eyebrows. And I'm just doing some quick blending. It's not perfect, but you know what? My guess is that my nephew is going to take the card, open it up, get the birthday check out of it, and then it'll probably go in the trash. So I'm not, toiling over the coloring of this, but I do want to create some nice shadowed areas. So I'm going back over with the E21, which is the darkest area, and reestablishing the nose a little bit, putting in the shadows underneath the hairline on either side of the nose. And now I'm doing some blending out with an E01. I have kind of a heavy hand with my Copic coloring, so the skin tone has gotten much darker. Every layer of color that you put down adds another layer of the pigment. So it does get darker and darker even when you're using light colors, but hopefully when I color in the hair, the blonde hair, the skin tone will look less brown. I am starting with a mid-tone yellow. It's a Y21, and I'm just trying to figure out where the highlights and where the lowlights would be. And the shadowed areas I tried to map out with that first Y color. Now I'm gonna use a YR12. This has a kind of a yellowy, orangey tone, and that's really the hair color that my nephew has. Even though this is supposed to be a James Dean kind of image, it actually does look a lot like my nephew. So I'm trying to use colors that would reflect his own hair color. Now I'm going in with the highlight color. This is the Y00, and you're thinking it looks a little crazy because I haven't bridged the colors together, but I'm gonna go back and forth and bridge those colors together, the YR12 and the Y00 with this Y21. And I'm adding more flicks so that you get more of a hair texture. I find that for the yellows, I don't get as much hair texture. So sometimes if I want to get more of those detail lines to show up, I need an E. So I've added an E31. And this is a really beige, like a pale beige, but it, I think, also bridges the colors between the YR colors and the Y colors I've chosen nicely so that it's not kind of a unnatural blonde. I think the E31 brings in a kind of more natural, neutral color to the hair. And I'm reestablishing the highlights because that kind of got washed out with the darker colors added later. I'm again re-adding the Y21 to get in those shadowed areas as well. Now I'm going on to the jeans. I've laid in a base color of the lighter B95, and then I'm going to establish the darkest areas with my B99. And this is a classic trio color of blues that I like to use for jeans. I next try to get in the folds, the wrinkles in the jeans with this B97 and blend out the B99 areas into the B95 with that 97. Really quick, easy coloring. For the t-shirt, I wanted to keep it white, but not white of the cardstock. So I use a C1 and then I blend out the center area with a 0 to make it more white. For the eyes, he has blue eyes, so I use the medium blue and then also the lighter blue to get more kind of light and life to those eyes. And even though it's a small area, using the two colors I think work nicely. For the black leather jacket, I thought I would try to figure out where the shadows would be with my C5. This is a cool gray. And again, this is just mapping out where the shadows are, not that this is the darkest color. It's actually my mid-tone gray here. And I'm also going to use the same colors for his boots. Most of his boots are hidden, but that front area is showing, and I wanted to leave a little highlight there where the shine would be. I'm also using a lighter gray, a C2, for the tread area of the boots. And now I'm going in with my real darker gray, the C7, to where I'm happy with the shadow that I marked out. I am going to be placing the C7, and it's kind of underneath the shadowed areas by his face, along the underside of his collar, on the back sides, behind the little belt buckle, on the edges of his boots, where the wrinkles or folds are for the pockets, where his inside elbow area is. All those areas get that C7. And I'm going to try and blend out with that C5. And I think it's blending pretty nicely. And I'm leaving some highlighted areas, but I think the C2 would be too light. So I've decided to bring in a C4. And I think that that gives the sense of it being a black leather jacket and having highlights, but not having it be too white. I'm just going back in, reestablishing the shadows again with that C7, getting it a little bit darker. And I think that it goes from being kind of like a gray jacket to more of a black jacket, even though these are all done with gray markers, just with going over one more time that the darkest areas and reestablishing those, because they do get bleached out after you use the lighter tones. The alcohol in the markers bleaches out the darker pigment. I'm going back in. I decide I'm going to add the C2 to the tread area and make that a little bit darker, take off the whiteness of the paper. Now I'm going to do a little bit of background ink blending. I'm just starting to play with my Tim Holtz Distress Oxide inks, and I'm just blending it on using the Tim Holtz Raise stencil. I've cut out a little piece of scrap cardstock, and I'm going to just kind of do somewhat of like a sunrise and use the blues and greens and yellows. The green actually is not a true green. It's actually broken china, but with the orange blended together, it reads as more being like green. And then at the top, I'm using a blue. I'm using Faded Jeans. And I thought those colors would coordinate nicely with the colors that I used in Copic markers to color up the little James character. I'm going to just mat it with some blue cardstock. It's the same cardstock that I'm using for the card base itself, but I just want a little mat around this. And for the background, I'm going to use just a piece of pattern paper that has a brick motif on it, and I'm going to leave a little bit of an edge of the card base so that it's matted also with the blue. And you can see I'm matting the inset piece as well. And I decide for a little extra interest, I'm going to just wrap some dark navy blue baker's twine. This is a midnight blue from the Twinery. And I'm just on the back of the little matted card piece, I'm using some Scotch tape, and I'm just going to tape down that twine and then futz with it a little bit just so that I get kind of a ray look. Larger on the left side, smaller on the right side, and then I'm just gonna adhere that to the card base. And for James now, I'm using some double-sided foam tape, and I'm going to pop him up a little bit. And that middle area, I have not put foam tape because that's where the twine is, and so that raises it up just enough to have James all on one level. As you can see, I added some blue bling pieces for a little sparkle, and I also added some stickers from an old 2014 Jelly Bean Soup birthday bisque collection, and the inside just has some more stickers. I hope you enjoyed this process video. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.